about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest A-Level Politics live revision blast. It's Jim here at TTUHQ, and we are back with Duncan and Kira again, the dream team for A-Level Politics. And it's our first session on US politics, much requested, right, Duncan and Kira, so we thought we'd put a 35-minute session together covering some core topics on US politics. If you're joining us live, I can see on the chat window lots and lots of people joining us in the live window. Then welcome. You get a chance to type your answers into the chat window in response to the different activities. If you're watching us on catch-up or replay, of course, you can pause the video at any stage and just give yourself more time. We won't see your live responses, but hopefully you get on well with the questions. Duncan, do you want to give us a quick flavour as to what we're covering? I know obviously we haven't got time to cover absolutely everything on US politics. No. So what are we doing today?
So we're having a bit of a mix across different aspects of the US politics topic. So we haven't focused on one particular area. We've got a bit of presidents, got a bit of Congress, a bit of constitution, looking back at some recent elections. So plenty to look at. We will start with some multiple choice questions. So you can A, B, C, or D in the chat window for the live audience. If you're watching on catch up, please don't phone in because you're
phoning.
You may still be charged and your votes won't count. But okay,
you've been watching 1990s TV on catch up all holiday, don't you?
I have, yeah. Okay, so shall we get cracking? Kira's going to start us off with some MCQs, and these are really about relatively recent US politics, just to get us started. So a bit of general knowledge, really.
Let's go for it. Have fun, everyone.
Oh, excellent. So the first question then is, what was the voter turnout for the 2020 presidential election? So our very recent election, what was the turnout? So put A, B, C, or D in the chats.
we
see
think?
some answers coming through. So what was the voter turnout? Was it A, B, C, or D? Okay, got a good guess there from Anna, going for D. Okay, let's see what the correct answer is. Got a couple more people going for D, and that is correct. The correct answer is D, 67%. So this is much higher than turnout in the American elections over the past decade. So it's quite interesting to see that sort of resurge in figures in the 2020 election. I wonder if the next one will be so large as well. So let's have a look at the next question then. So how many electoral college votes did Biden win? So we're thinking about the threshold is 270. How much was it that Biden won himself? A, B, C, or D? So Barry doesn't take politics, but he's doing well. It's good to see.
I think if Kira's given a clue for a later question, by the way, so if you were were listening carefully, one of the questions later on, you'll know the answer.
Very just checking if you're paying attention. Excellent, yeah. Okay, so good seeing some good answers coming through, and the correct answer, which I think all of you have gotten, is C, 306. So well done. Definitely over 306. So a good comfortable win for him. So let's have a look at the next question. So what percentage of the vote did Trump win in 2000?
Oh, I think we've lost Kira for a second. Can you hear her? I'll speak just in case you can't. What percentage of the vote did Trump win in 2020? Was it 40, 47, 45, or 43? What do we think? We got any suggestions there? A, B, C, or D? Okay, Anna's coming with B, but she thinks she's wrong. I'm not sure she is wrong. Shall we have a look and see what the answer is? What's B? Well done. It's quite high, wasn't it? But remember, you're essentially going between two candidates in the end. So, yeah, okay. There's very small number for the third candidate. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. How many executive orders did Biden sign on his first day in office? What do we think? Was it 20, 40, 30, or 50? Who was paying attention? Sam's gone for A, 20. They all sound a lot, don't they? A lot of executive orders to sign on your first day. Ed's also gone for 20. Anna's thinking it might be 40. Shall we have a look at the answer? It's 50. Really got going on his first day in office. Signed a lot of executive orders. Okay. Obviously, some of it undoing some of his predecessors' work. Shall we have a look at the next question? What was Biden's first executive action after being sworn in? So we know he did all those 50 executive orders. What was the first thing he did? Was it to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement? Was it to re-engage with the World Health Organization? Was it to extend a student loan pause? Or was it to create a position of COVID-19 response coordinator? So, interested in a lot of those points, but what was the first thing he did? What do we reckon? A few people going for B. That seems quite a popular answer. Shall we take a look? It was indeed B, re-engage with the World Health Organization. Oh, I heard a dingly dingle sound in the background. I don't know whether we've managed to regain satellite contact with Kira. Hope so. But we shall move on. Okay. To a next activity. Okay, and this one's a higher or lower activity. We're going to be looking at kind of the descriptive representativeness of Congress, really. The percentage of different groups within the chambers of Congress, and also a little bit of, at the end, a little bit of comparison with the UK, because obviously that's an element of your US topic as well, that comparative element. So first of all, we're starting with the percentage of African Americans in the Senate. Oh, we're back in the green room. Oh, we're back at this. Okay, so we've got...
Sorry, just to let you know, Duncan, Kira has rejoined us. So
okay. Like, I was just checking that. Okay, thank God. Sorry about that, guys.
It looks like the connection is now nice and strong.
Oh, that's great. Fab. Okay, so the percentage of African Americans in the Senate. Okay, so if we start off with that, so that is 2%, so it's pretty low. That might make the next one easier, whatever the question is, really, because you can't get much lower than 2%. But we need to know whether it's higher or lower, the percentage of African Americans in the House of Representatives. Is it higher or lower than 2%? Some saying higher. Okay. Anyone else thinking higher? Anyone want to take a punt on lower? Anna's going for higher as well. Shall we have a look? It is indeed higher, 13%. That's pretty close to being, reasonably representative of African Americans in America in general. Okay, what about women in the Senate? Is that higher or lower than 13%? So the percentage of senators who are women, are we going higher or lower than 13% of them? Any ideas? Anna's going maybe lower. I suppose when we think about senators, we often think about old white men. Some suggesting higher. Shall we have a look? It is higher. It's 26%, but that's still quite low when you think, over 50% of Americans are women. To only have 26% of senators being women is pretty poor. Let's have a look at the next one. Women in the House of Representatives. Do we think that's higher or lower than 26%? This is currently, by the way, so based on the current House. Higher or lower than 26%? Had a few people coming in with higher, perhaps on the basis that the House of Representatives seems to be more representative of African Americans. You might think, well, on that basis, perhaps it's going to be more representative of women too. It's a nice logic. Shall we have a look? I think it's lower, but only a bit lower, but 23%. So not doing very well for representation of women in either chamber. Okay, and a little bit of comparison at the end then. What about women in the UK House of Commons? Is that higher or lower than the 23% in the House of Representatives? What do we reckon? What percentage of MPs, members of the House of Commons, are women?
I think this is one of the questions on.
Oh, we've got an echo. We've got lots of people coming in with higher. And let's have a look. I think we've had it. Yeah, I think we've had it when we did Parliament last time. It was 34%. And Anna's saying because Labour have got a lot of women MPs. I think you're right in saying I think over half the Parliamentary Labour Party is now women. Okay, so that's really good. Well done. So well done. Lots of right answers there. And it's useful to think about that and also that comparison, because when you're thinking about, you might get a question comparing the Congress with Parliament, and that sort of descriptive representation could be one area that you could consider. Okay. Hopefully going to be able to hand over to Kira for the categorise activity. If the echo is too bad, I'll step in. Okay, hopefully handing over to Kira. All right, well, I'll start it and we'll see what happens. Okay, so what we've got here are some key ideas, some points about constitutions. And you've got to basically order them into whether they are true of the US, of the UK, so the US Constitution, the UK Constitution, or indeed true of both of them. Okay, so a nice little bit of comparative politics for you. So we're going to have a timer in a moment, and you'll just have to say, you can type into the chat window if you're watching us live, US and then a number, UK and then a number, both then a number. You can do them all at once, or you can do one at a time as you go. Obviously, when you're spotting the both ones, they're possibly the ones you need to try and spot, because you might stick them under one country and then in fact they come under both. Okay, shall we start the clock and see how you get going? So just type US, both, or UK and then a number in the chat window. Okay, we've got some good answers coming through in the chat. Some looking pretty much bang on, a couple getting close, but perhaps not ordering all of them quite in the right place. Shall we have a look and see where we put them? Okay, so the US, we have got 6, separation of powers. Now, a couple of people put that under both, but if you think about the UK, in many ways, we have a fusion of powers, less so than we used to, because of the Supreme Court and the removal of the law lords, if you like. That role of the Lord Chancellor was always a particularly sort of fusion of powers, but we still very much the executive and the legislature are very sort of combined. We've got the executive appointing the Supreme Court judges. We've got the leader having a direct mandate from the people. The president is directly elected, unlike the UK Prime Minister. For both, we've got that it has a constitution. Okay, so the US has a constitution, the UK has a constitution. It's not written down in one place. It's not codified, but it is a constitution. The president and the prime minister are both the main negotiator with other nations, and the leaders, the prime minister or the president, both have some constraints placed on them by the legislature. In the UK, we've got the legislative branch is sovereign, which isn't the case in the UK, so parliamentary sovereignty is very different. And we have a unitary government. Despite devolution, we have parliamentary sovereignty. The centre of government is very much Westminster and Whitehall. Devolution is sort of gifted by central government and could theoretically be taken back again. Okay, so some good answers there, and well done. And some of that, it's not all straightforward. There's some quite tricky ones in there. Okay, let's move on.
There we go. Hang on.
I think I'm back again. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, don't worry about it, Kieran.
You're back.
Okay.
We're back. What's the next activity, Duncan? It's good to see you back. It sounds like internet issues at Kira's end, but we're back.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're next up with. Oh, have I gone?
Oh my gosh.
Am I still there?
We are back. We have a full
okay.
complement, Duncan. All good.
That's all right. I think it's non-balanced one now, which is meant to be me presenting, but I think because Kira's been off-piste, off the grid, we can sort of do it together a bit, really. But we've got a debate here, a nice kind of essay-type debate about whether we have an imperial or an imperiled presidency in the US. And the idea here is we'll end up having a bit of a debate in the chat window and a discussion. But if you could start by thinking about ways in which the US has an imperial presidency, so that's on that left-hand side of the weight. If you're not quite sure about what we mean by that term, either because you're sort of perhaps just starting American politics, or I noticed a couple of people in the chat window saying they're just wanting to have a go, but they don't necessarily do US politics. It's a similar concept, I suppose, to like kind of prime ministerial government. It's the sort of dominance of the presidency. You've got a president without particularly effective checks and balances. So can you think of some arguments or ways that support that the US has an imperial presidency, that checks and balances on the president are not particularly effective? What do you reckon? Are there things the president can do without much restraint from either the legislature or the judiciary?
I guess it's kind of how effective are the separations of powers and stuff in America too.
Yeah.
Kind of like it's not so effective in Britain because Parliament is sovereign. Is that the same in America?
To what extent is the president dominant, or are there ways in which the president is dominant? There are things the president can do without restraint. Okay, we've got Anna suggesting a bit of history here coming in about Truman possibly bypassing Congress in World War II. We could think about war. That could be one area we might consider. In theory, Congress has to declare war. Doesn't do it very often. And yet America seems to be at war quite a lot. So that might be something to consider. Sam Jackson said, Imperial, executive orders, appoint Supreme Court, Commander-in-Chief, can fire the cabinet anytime. Lots of good points there. Shall we have a look at what I came up with? But those are all really good. So we put executive orders and executive agreements. Okay. So executive orders are often used in lieu of legislation. So they might struggle to get legislation through Congress, but they can put an executive order without a restraint. And then we've got executive agreements that, you need the Senate to ratify treaties, but you can make these agreements with other countries without necessarily signing a treaty. And then also foreign policy, which I think was mentioned in the chat. There are lots of situations where the president has taken military action without Congress declaring war. Okay, we've had a couple of other comments in the chat window. President's dominant because they can veto bills. Okay, which the Prime Minister can't do that. Supreme Court judges are appointed by the president. Okay, yeah, so lots of good points there in the chat window. I'd like you to think about the other side now then, this idea that they've got an imperiled president, that actually the president struggles to do things because of the checks and balances that exist. You might want to think of kind of counter arguments to the ones we've already put, which you could like kind of partner up if you're writing an essay about this, or you could think about alternative points, different points altogether. How effective are those checks and balances on the president? Can you think of some ways in which they are effective? I'll give you a minute or two because some great answers came through on the last one, but they did take a little bit of thought. Can we think of, for example, limits on the divided government restrains the president? Jessica said a really good point. Yeah, so quite often the executive is run by a different party than Congress, or you might have split within Congress as well, and that can lead to the president struggling to get some of its agenda through. We've got that the Constitution is supreme and only Congress can change it. Congress can override presidents, override the veto. States have a large amount of control. Yeah, the federalism. Okay, lots of good points there. Okay, I think I've got some different ones coming in on the scales. That's good. So as well as the really good points that have been made in the chat window, we can add this. Congress controls the funding. Okay, so say that the president can take military action without Congress support. But, generally speaking, military action requires funding, and Congress could choose to withhold it. And then I think this echoes a point made in the chat window. The Supreme Court can rule executive orders unconstitutional, and other executive ideas unconstitutional. And therefore, that isn't an unrestrained power, actually. Yeah. So think of examples of that. The Trump's Muslim travel ban, various courts around the country challenged that on constitutional grounds. Okay. So well done. Some great answers there. Very good. Right. Shall we move on to some more MCQs from Kira?
Cool, great. Glad to be back as well. So hope you didn't cut out halfway. So our first one then is, how many members are there in the US Senate, A, B, C, or D? How many members are there in the Senate? So it's the upper house. How many members are there? Okay, well done, Sam. Nice. Excellent. So yeah, the correct answer then is D, just like Sam pointed out. It's 2 members per state. So it's 50 states, two members each makes 100. So it's 100 members sit in the Senate, and they have a 6-year term as well. There's quite a lot of continuity there across the branch in that sense. So what's our next question then? How many Supreme Court justices are there? So interesting, in the UK, we're trying to actually reduce our amount of Supreme Court justices. Maybe it might end up being a bit closer to the American size as a result of that. Okay, so A, B, C, or D? Okay, so Anna's put down a guess of A. See if we can get some more guesses through. So you can see as well, it's obviously an odd number, because you need an odd number to decide cases. Otherwise, you're just going to have an even split sometimes. So good. So yeah, excellent. I think Jessica's got it. So the correct answer then is D, 9 Supreme Court justices. And I think some of you have mentioned already really well that they're appointed by the president as well. So that's actually give the president quite a lot of power in that sense. And Donald Trump actually managed to appoint three justices in his first term, which I think is the first president since Nixon. So it's created quite a conservative tilt in the court as well. So let's see what our next question is then. So where does the Constitution vest executive power? So where does executive power sit in the US Constitution? Who does it sit with? A, B, C, or D? Okay, so the Constitution, excellent, Jessica again and Sam. So the correct answer is B, the president. So the Constitution empowers the president, because in the UK you have the executive body is drawn from Parliament. So the Prime Minister is the first among equals. But when it comes to America, it's like a single figure having that executive power. So there's a lot more scope for the president compared to the Prime Minister in that regard. Okay, so let's see what our next question is then. Okay, so how many people serve in Congress? So how many people serve? So that's together with the Senate. So we do know how many people serve in the Senate, and then how many serve in the House of Representatives together. So in the collective body, A, B, C, or D?
Now, if people were paying attention with the Senate one, it can't be D, can it? Because that would suggest there were no members of the House of Representatives, which would be
yeah, exactly. That definitely wouldn't be very democratic. Yeah. Okay.
So I think we can roll out D. Rule out
yeah.
D.
Okay, so and B is the answer for British politics. So the one for American politics then is so Jim's gone for a guess of D. That's great. Is A. So 335 members. So it's the two houses together makes the Congress, and you've got 435 representatives who serve 2-year terms. Then, so they're up for election a lot quicker than in British politics. So this next question then
is one, just to check if you were listening earlier before I cut off. So the last question is, what number of electoral college votes are needed to win the presidency? So some of you are here just for the ride. You don't do American politics, but let's see if you learned something. Okay, so A, B, C, or D. What do we need for an electoral college victory? Okay, good. Excellent. Right, that's great. So the correct answer then is B, 270. So well done. Okay, so that's it for the multiple choice questions. So over to you, Duncan, for the last one.
Okay, so this is our last activity today, and it's one we haven't used for politics before, so I'll explain it, even for those who've joined us previously. It's the Chile quiz, and you're going to get 3 questions, one which is I'm ranking as being mild, so hopefully a reasonably easy question. You'll be able to think of some answers for that quite readily. Another question that's spicy, a bit more difficult, and a final one that's hot. It's meant to be a pretty difficult question. And you can score yourselves on this and see whether you manage to get the maximum of 6 points. They're not 3 questions about Chile, the country. If it was, the answer is almost always Salvador Allende, but it's not that. So we're going to move on to have a look at the questions on the screen. We've got our mild question, suggests one way in which the US Constitution is undemocratic. We've got our spicy question, give an example of that way in action. And then our hot question is suggest a way in which the Constitution supports a pluralist democracy. So it's reasonably easy to think, that kind of 2 sides of the argument. Is the US Constitution democratic or not? Yes, it is. No, it isn't. But I'm wanting you to focus on a pluralist idea of democracy. So that's where the difficulty comes in that last question. Okay, the time goes quite fast on this. There's a little bit of funky music, and then the time goes quite fast. So hope you're ready with your typing fingers to type it in. Obviously, if you're watching on catch up, you can pause it and cheat. Okay, see how you do. Let's go for it. It does go fast, that, doesn't it? Okay, so we've had suggestion there. I mean, actually, the way that the Constitution can be changed isn't by the Supreme Court. It's quite a complex. There are a couple of ways it could be changed, and both are very difficult. So it's very difficult to change the Constitution. That rigidity could well be an answer there, but you need to do a quick bit of revision about how the Constitution is amended. Sam's talking about the fact
that prohibition got through. Like, as difficult as it is to change the Constitution,
yeah,
managed to actually ban alcohol. It was pretty impressive. And then
Sam's,
of course.
Well, yes, yeah. Sam's talking about the president doesn't have to win a majority, and looking at the 2016 election. So the kind of voting system, if you like, or the electoral college system, does mean that the popular vote doesn't necessarily match the electoral college victory. That's true. Anyone going for any of the spicy or hot answers? I'll give you about 30 seconds just to get a quick answer in. So if you're saying, for example, that the Constitution's too rigid, inflexible, can you think of an example of that? I guess we've got the example. Sam's given an example of his presidential vote one, and then he's given the example of the 2016 election where Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Small states can overpower large states when it comes to amending the Constitution. Yeah, good point. Okay, absolutely. Okay, shall we have a look at some answers that I suggested? But some really good ones coming in there. So I agreed with one of the other contributors in the thing there that the Constitution, you could argue, is too rigid. There might be possible changes that have popular support, but they're blocked by that very difficult process. And I've suggested an example of that, which is the Second Amendment, gun laws. There's quite a lot of support now in America for stricter gun laws, and better gun control. But the combination of the rigidity of the constitution and also the influence of the gun lobby, but we can also say, the power of lobbyists is potentially a problem with the constitution as well. Prevent that from happening. And then no one suggested an answer for the hot question, thinking about the way in which the constitution supports a pluralist democracy. But a few people did mention the role of states. And of course, that could have been put forward as an answer to that third one, with that federalism system, that federal system where the states have quite a bit of autonomy, quite a bit of power, does support local differences in political culture, does support a kind of pluralistic democracy. It doesn't enforce kind of a Washington approach to the whole of the United States. So when you think about it, it's a very big country. Okay, so some great answers there. And I'm sorry we had some technical problems, but we got through it. Okay, so thank you guys. Well done.
Some great answers there, weren't they?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, Kira, there's never been a better time, has there, really, to study US politics in terms of recent developments, particularly if you're looking at electoral systems.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
definitely very interesting right now, isn't it? Although that's the thing, it doesn't stop; it just keeps on going. So you have to keep up to date on the news.
Did I see something in the news this morning that Biden's proposing the Supreme Court is extended by an extra 4 or 6 justices? There's something around getting around this issue that there's a Republican majority on the Supreme Court by creating some new justices.
It's an interesting one. Didn't see it, but I'm sure it could well be. The case. Should have watched the news before we came on.
Breaking news, Duncan. No excuse.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
FDR did try to do that. He tried to pack the court, but it was seen as quite undemocratic. But I guess if it's going to be pluralist, the more voices, the better in some ways.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, okay. So it all seems to have gone quiet as well, doesn't it? Trump, whether you liked him or loathed him, it was something in the news every day. Whereas now it all seems to sort of gone normal again, doesn't it? It's maybe for the better, maybe, I don't know.
Well, probably. And there was also obviously there was a lot of concern, wasn't there, with the storming of the Capitol building and all that kind of thing. What was coming next? And yeah, fortunately, touch wood, it's reasonably quiet at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder as well. Like, are we going to be in a situation where the press goes a bit easy on Biden? Like I saw there was a really odd question. They asked what he gave up for Lent, and it was like, you're supposed to be scrutinizing him, not being like friendly. So I think that will be interesting. Yeah. Hopefully they still kind of hold him to account in the same way though, but we'll see.
And then the other question I think is whether there'll be a third party, whether we might see Trumpism as something separate from Republicanism, and the system isn't set up for that. It's very much set up for two-party system, but it'll be interesting to see, because obviously the kind of mainstream Republicans would distance themselves from Trumpism, I imagine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic session. And unlike some of the other subjects, Duncan, you've finished it on time. As some of the live guests will know from attending some of our other sessions, which can go beyond the time occasionally, but fantastic session again. And Duncan, we were thinking we might do one on global, the other option there, because I think a lot of students increasing numbers of students are looking at global as well. So
yeah, well, it's a popular option with EdXL, so we will do it at some point. We will do a global one. Yeah, so
we'll look out for that.
Watch this space.
Well, we're back with our live sessions for politics. I think we're back into the late afternoon, early evening slots now that the Easter holidays are drawing to a close. So don't forget to subscribe to tutordu.net/live. You'll get an update on all the latest sessions. We're going to be adding those over the next 24, 48 hours or so. If you found the session useful, as always, and we don't take this for granted, please give it a thumbs up to help put other students. There we go. Duncan's demonstrating how to do it. That helps YouTube suggest it. The algorithm, the famous YouTube algorithm, suggests this session to other A-level politics students. Really great. You can watch it again, including the bits where Kira left us and then came back again, if you wish, on the replay. We're not going to edit those out. It's authentic here. And we'll look forward to catching you at our next A-level politics revision session. So cheers.
Thank you.
See ya.
Cool. Thank you.